where we make it okay to talk about all things menopause. We cover the clinician and medical side, the lifestyle, and also the emotional and the real. I'm Melanie Olson. I'm the community director here at Gennev, and today we're going to deep dive into a topic I'm very excited about and also could use some good tips and tricks myself on. We're going to talk about the healthy menopause plate and why it's such an awesome and sustainable and easy way to eat during menopause. And pro tip also at any other stage of your life. We're going to dish a bit on diet culture and the role that that's played on how all of us make decisions around the diet choices and the ways and reasons that we put things into our body. You all know Monika Jacobson, as she has often hosted these live events as well. And also being the face of Gennev on our social channels, Monika is an accomplished registered dietitian with over 15 years experience. She meets with patients every single day, managing and rocking all stages of menopause. So her expertise is vast, especially around people managing healthy menopause lifestyle. Monika, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Melanie. Yes, I'm so excited to be here again today. And I like sitting on this side of the interview where you can pick my brain a bit today. So thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming and joining us. One of the things that you had talked about when we were prepping for this is what it means. What are some of the things that you see out in the field every single day? Some of the diets that women are dealing with and some of your patients are dealing with. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's really interesting because as a dietitian, I think people think of what we do as maybe be the food police and write meal plans and scrutinize every detail of everybody's diet and what they put into their bodies every day or what they don't put into their bodies every day. And that's just that's not exactly it. And it's also some of that is just a part of what we do. But certainly with the population of incredible patients that I get to work with here at Gennev, there is really a theme that comes up pretty often, and it's not with every single patient, but what we see is that a lot of the people who are seeking our guidance are trying to understand, okay, I'm in this stage of menopause, often in a perimenopause state or even postmenopausal, and they're feeling like, what should I be eating now at this stage of my life? And maybe the way they used to eat isn't working anymore. Like perhaps their digestion is changing or the way their body is storing fat is different. And those are all really normal things that happen in perimenopause and beyond. So we're always thinking about, okay, how can we use nutrition to really optimize health during this second phase of life for women and people born with ovaries? So what I often hear as well, and I think my team, all the dietitians on our team would agree, we hear a lot about people who've tried every diet under the sun, and it often goes way back to sometimes even adolescence, childhood. But I think so many of us were raised with that diet mentality or the idea that we need to eat a certain way to be a certain size or for our bodies to be in a particular healthy way. So what I'd love to talk about today is just kind of shedding a lot of that and letting go of that idea that that we have to eat a certain way, which is hard and restrictive to be healthier or to be a certain size or to manage our weight or something like that. And just by a show of hands, or if anyone wants to chime in on the chat, I know so many people have tried Atkins, South Beach, keto, grapefruit. You name it, all the diets.
Intermittent fasting, and these all could work. There's nothing against these, right? But how many of these have we tried? If listener, put it into the channel. If you're listening, what have you tried? Maybe you've been successful, but throw them in there. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
I've done
Yeah.
all of them, Monika. And I
And you're
haven't
not
been able
alone
to
now.
sustain very many of them. I've had some success, but
And I think it's a good call out that there are good and often helpful things with a lot of these different diets or styles of eating. But what often happens is they're just not sustainable for people to do in the long term. And then most of them end up backfiring, and we do more rebound unhealthy eating or less healthy eating. And then it's sort of like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And it just kind of keeps us in this perpetual cycle. And a lot of people, I think by the time they get to midlife and they're working with us, they've had a lot of like weight cycling. Maybe they've lost that same 5 to 50 pounds many times over and over again. And that's really fatiguing. That's really hard. So I just want to like recognize that for everybody listening, that you're not alone if you've tried all the diets. And what I would like to talk about here today is the menopause healthy plate. And I know you're familiar with it, Melanie. We talk about it here at Gennev. And it's really a framework for building healthy meals that is sustainable. And I don't really like to put it in the same bucket as going on a diet. It's not that. It's actually the opposite. The idea there is that this is a way that you can eat forever. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to break that down and tell you why that is. Before we do that, I noticed a great comment here in the chat. That maybe this person says keto was okay, but now in early menopause, it's harder. So this person sounds like she's struggling, and she's got a little one at home, a toddler. You're running around after a toddler. That takes a lot of energy, and keto is so low in carbohydrates that when you don't have that carbohydrate fuel readily available in your body, it's hard. You get tired, and it does make it impossible. So
it's also really restrictive. I feel like that's hard in the long term. I really struggle with that. So I'll go back and forth between being really good and then kind of falling off the wagon. With keto, I've done that. Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's a good point. And when you fall off the wagon, how does that feel mentally and emotionally for you?
It's not good. It's been part of my cycle. It's one of the things I'm working with Katie at Gennev. Again, I love our dietitians, and I just feel grateful I get to work with Katie. We're working on that. We're talking about it. But it's a real emotional load. And it kind of stacks up, and it adds, and it has through my life. And so, now we're ripping it apart. We're talking about it. And it's so good to get that kind of support. But I would say that over time, it's been pretty negative.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's exactly what happens. It's negative, and you have that, then you feel like, well, now I've failed at this diet. I can't do this. This sucks. Your worth and that shame sets in. It's just a spiral of negativity. And so by pulling back the curtains and kind of going, okay, that's a theme, I think, with any restrictive diet that doesn't feel sustainable. Mm-hmm. And so let's get into this menopause healthy plate and kind of what that means. It's just sort of like this idea floating above us at the moment, but let's dive into it. And I just want to explain why it works, because honestly, I tell this to everybody, but it is not rocket science to learn how to eat healthy. It's actually pretty simple. The hard part is making it happen, is the execution. It's doing it and changing behaviors. And that takes months, years, a lifetime. So when you're hearing what I'm talking about today, let it settle in and take it with you as something to start sprinkling into your life and letting some of that past diet culture influence go, because this is a way to eat that I think really most people can benefit from forever. So
Awesome.
how freeing would that be? Like to have
Amazing.
that concept, right?
Well, what is the menopause plate?
Yes. Okay, so the menopause healthy plate again is a template. So think of this like a puzzle. And if you think about your plate, and I'm going to show you an example here in a minute. But if you think about like a plate at like a lunch or a dinner, the idea here is that your plate will include your 3 macronutrients, which we all need. And we have 3 big macronutrients for a reason. I'm sure that many of you could guess what these are, but I'll tell you just to make this easy: carbohydrates, fat, and protein. So we've all heard of those. Those are your macronutrients. Your micronutrients are more like your vitamins, your minerals, but we're talking about the big ones. So those 3: protein, fat, carbs. So diets that are too restrictive of one of those food groups, those macronutrients, that's where it gets hard and it gets to be unsustainable. So that's often, we know that to promote weight loss, most people will benefit from eating slightly lower and more balanced, healthy carbohydrates. But some of these diets take that to such an extreme that it's so low carb that then your plate becomes a little bit less balanced, and it gets to be, if you exclude one of those macronutrients or make it so small, that's where it isn't sustainable. So my point is, you need 3 macronutrients for a reason. They all serve a purpose in your body.
And they work together. They do, right?
They do.
Work together in tandem to serve your body.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about that too, because that really relates back to health, glycemic health, what your blood sugars are doing, how that affects satiety or fullness. So absolutely. Okay, so you've got protein, fat, and carbs. So if we think about what that looks like in the menopause healthy plate, about half your plate, especially lunches and dinners, is probably easier. You want to get half your plate coming from vegetables. Now, this can be truly any and all vegetables. So if it could be leafy greens, it could be carrots, it could be broccoli, cauliflower. It's pretty much any of the non-starchy vegetables.
So no corn. We're not talking a piece of corn on a cob and a hunk of mashed potatoes. That doesn't qualify. Okay.
Not technically, but I'll tell you where those do fit on the healthy plate.
Okay.
Because you really anything can fit here. It's just figuring out where does it fit in the template. So if you've got half your plate coming from non-starchy vegetables, then another quarter of your plate is going to be some kind of lean protein. And this could be plant-based protein or animal protein, but ideally some kind of lean or lower fat animal protein. And plant-based proteins in this bucket would include things like edamame, soy, even non-animal muscle proteins like eggs or Greek yogurt or cheese, cottage cheese.
So cottage cheese and Greek yogurt are in that lean protein. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and of course the fat content can vary with any kind of dairy product. So you can have a non-fat Greek yogurt or you can have a full-fat Greek yogurt, and the protein level is pretty consistent across. The fat content is really what changes. So half plate veggies, quarter protein, and then the other quarter of your plate is some kind of fiber-rich carbohydrates. So I think this is where people tend to skimp out on that if they're trying to lose weight or they think like, I shouldn't eat carbs because carbs are bad. But I'm here to tell you, carbs are not bad. You need carbs, but you just need the right type of carbohydrates. And the ones you need are the fiber-rich carbohydrates. So these are also kind of known as the more complex carbohydrates. So some examples here would be, like you just said, Mel, the corn, the potatoes, fruit, whole grains, and I would even put something like beans or lentils. In a menopause healthy plate, we kind of put those right on the border between like a protein and a carb. because they're actually pretty cool. They're balanced on their own with those 2 macronutrients. But especially for people who eat more plant-based and a little bit lean, more a little vegetarian, beans, lentils, those are a great source of protein first and foremost. So
those are so easy to throw in your crock pot or your Instapot. I've been doing that, and it's cheap. You just get a bag of those, throw them in with some some chicken broth or something, and a few other things, and it's a delicious meal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And beans and lentils are so budget friendly too. That's why I just love them, because you can get a little bag of dried beans or a can of cooked beans. That's usually my go-to because it's quick, for like 99 cents. And that can be 2 or 3 meals worth of protein. So, so we talked about veggies, protein, carbs. There's one more thing I didn't mention, which is healthy fats. And so in our menopause healthy plate, we put that right in the bullseye, because we do need a little bit of healthy fat. That's important for our heart health, our satiety, helping us feel full, for our brain function. You do need healthy fats, but we just need the right amount and the right types. So when I say healthy fats, I'm mostly referring to unsaturated fats that are usually coming from a plant source, such as olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds. And that often comes in the cooking process. Like maybe you cooked that protein and with a little bit of avocado oil, or maybe you put a sprinkle of nuts on a salad, or if you had some animal protein that contains some fat, like let's say you had a piece of steak, or you had some chicken that was cooked with the skin on, then that meat naturally does include some fat. So you're checking that box. You're getting that little bit of healthy fat within the protein itself too. So usually we get the fat in some way, shape, or form, but it is a really important part of the plate too.
Yeah, the bullseye of the plate.
The bullseye, yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
I wanted to just share a little. Someone in the chat shared what she's doing, and it's cool. She says, I've had such success with intermittent fasting, and my mom has too, by the way. I know other women have, and other people.
Yeah.
I've gone eating meat and dairy to being a pescatarian, and I have just entered menopause. Exercise is also crucial. You're going to love this because she's so right on. Exercise is also crucial, especially strength training. I can attest to that. I've lost 20 pounds in the last year, and I feel great, and I'm inclined to keep at it. I look at all of this as a lifestyle for me now.
That's awesome.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I totally agree. Absolutely. And I think that's where we can't say that a certain style of eating is black and white. It's not all good or bad. It's finding what's sustainable for you. And we all have different genetics. We all have different biochemistries inside of us. And so we can't say that this is like a one size fits all for everybody. But I will say the thing about the menopause healthy plate is that this is rooted through and backed by so much research, because it really aligns with the Mediterranean style of eating. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of studies and so much literature on the Mediterranean diet and how that's so great for brain health, heart health, glycemic health, longevity, you name it, menopause. So I would definitely say find something that's sustainable for you. I've never met one client in my whole career that tries this and says, I can't, like this, after working at it, feels like this is not a sustainable way to eat. It's totally sustainable. And there's science behind that too. And so I do want to talk to that a little bit, and then I'll show you my example here. But I know we talked about, touched on like the idea of satiety and fullness. And when you're eating your protein, fat, and carbs, and that include fiber, all in this balance, it actually helps us maintain stable blood sugar levels throughout the day. And it helps support stable cortisol, our stress hormone, stable cortisol levels throughout the day. So when you're eating like these balanced mini meals throughout the day, about 3 to 4 hours apart, give or take. Again, everybody's a little different with your own needs, but I'd say that's pretty generally a good tip. Then blood sugars aren't going to have the big spike and fall. They're going to be much more stable. They're also going to be, you're also going to have hunger start to bubble up when it's near the next meal. So, I mean, by a show of virtual hands, I'm sure people here have tried maybe skipped breakfast, skip lunch, or don't eat lunch around kind of traditional lunch hour. And then by 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, you're going to eat your arm off because you're so hungry.
Yeah. And after that, there's this sort of hidden kind of permission around, I'll just kind of do whatever at that time, because really, unless it's part of an intermittent fasting thing that's working for you, really at that point, what you're saying is your body is not in a state of getting what it needs. And it shows. I definitely can relate to that. I've done that all the time. I'm really trying not to, and I'm feeling the results of that balance. Yeah. And also, I'll say this: I know in menopause, our blood sugars often do rise at this stage. I'm in peri. My blood sugars have risen, and due to lifestyle, they're really kind of starting to come down and get more stabilized. So that's really powerful to experience that, and to kind of go through that fear a little bit, and then lifestyle change it, and that's super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is your body naturally, when you feel like you want to eat your arm off, or you'll grab whatever's in the pantry or whatever's on the office, in the office kitchen, or that candy jars, like talking to you at 3 o'clock, or you get that like, oh, I'm so tired. That is because your body needs fuel. And so by front loading that with this balanced plate, eating these meals regularly throughout the day, you're more likely to ward off those cravings. It's usually sugar or some kind of salty, crunchy carbs. That's usually what we want that time of day, because that's the quickest energy. You eat that and your blood sugar goes right back to a happy place.
And it tastes so good.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. It does. So your brain, you get a dopamine hit, your body's feeling good. But it's also those foods, if you're eating the sugar alone without that balance of the healthy plate, it's so much harder to stop with one little cookie. You want to eat 4 little cookies or a bag of cookies, or you want to eat, no one just goes and eats 2 chips when they're starving. They start with 2 and then they eat more. At least I would. So it's, and those are not, by the way, I don't consider any food a bad food. Those are not bad foods. They're just foods that are often a little bit harder to stop at one. And by eating them in the balance with protein and fat and fiber, then those snacks, those foods are more filling, give you more satiety too.
Yeah. Crystal put a question in here, and I love it. Is it person to person, or is there any research to support going dairy-free in the perimenopause phase or beyond?
I love that question, because there's so many questions so similar to that, where we've heard, oh, I shouldn't eat dairy at this stage of my life, or gluten's bad for everybody, or etc. There's so many things I could use as an example. But I would say that's very much person to person. There's so much that plays into a dairy sensitivity or intolerance. Dairy is generally not pro-inflammatory to every person. Some people may have trouble or changes in the way they digest foods as they age. And so sometimes someone might feel like, oh, I used to be able to drink milk, and now that I'm in perimenopause or beyond, now I notice a little rumbly in my tumbly if I have, if you have that milk or you eat too much dairy, or maybe there's a threshold where you can have a little bit of cheese or yogurt, but a glass of milk or an ice cream cone, forget it, So I think it's very much individualized. And I work with people on troubleshooting that type of thing to figure out, okay, is this something for you? Do you feel better without dairy? Okay, now we know. If you're somebody who doesn't feel any difference excluding it, then there's some benefits to including dairy, especially for women in perimenopause and beyond. We're thinking a lot about your bones, making sure you're getting enough vitamin D and calcium and the nutrients that you need to maintain bone health. And dairy is a good source of that. So, I hope that explained, kind of gave a clear answer there.
I mean, it is very individual. I'll say I'm 46, I'm in peri, and I've started to reduce my milk. And then, I love my ice cream, but it does make my tummy be a little rumbly. And so I'm trying to kind of phase a bit of it out, but the yogurt works fine. Cheese is okay. Yeah. So for me, it tends to be the milk itself. And then what you had said, ice cream.
And often, I mean, the ice cream example, that one will get me too. I think that's also the combo of like a bunch of sugar with a high fat dairy. And it's often like eaten as a dessert after we've already had a meal. And so sometimes that whole combination just is a little bit harder to digest, but truly everybody is different. So it's really something I can't say, everyone over at this stage of life or a certain age, like, should consider not having XYZ. So, Well, let me show you. I just want to show you the healthy plate. I'm just going to tilt my camera down just a smidge. So this is the idea here. So this is what I'm going to eat for lunch here in a little bit. But this is half my plate is vegetables. I've got kale, tomatoes, pickled onions, a little goat cheese in there, some pistachios, and an olive oil balsamic dressing situation. So this is this half your plate could be, again, any non-starchy vegetables. And then you can see I've got a quarter of my plate. This is some chicken. So we roasted up a chicken the other night, and we've been eating it for a couple of days. And that's a great meal prep tip.
Yes.
Yeah, you can even get a rotisserie chicken at the grocery store. You don't need to even cook it yourself. But having that cooked lean protein on hand is huge. I'm a busy full-time working mom of 2 kids. I don't have time to spend 2 hours cooking dinner every night. Not even close.
Seriously.
Shortcuts like this save me. And then I've got another quarter of my plate coming in from a baked potato. This could have been rice or some pasta or a piece of bread. I love making sourdough bread at home. So like that would be probably what I'd prefer to eat over the potato, but I'm totally okay with that too. And then naturally I have some healthy fat in here via the olive oil dressing and the pistachios that are in my salad. And then naturally a little bit in the chicken because it was cooked with the skin on. So this is just an example of a balanced plate. You can see the real visual of what the plate model would look like. I do want to point out something, which is that I hear sometimes people say, well, how do I know if I'm eating like a casserole or a stir fry or a mixed dish of some kind? How does that fit into the plate model? And that's where we like to teach our patients how to break down that recipe or what's in that meal. And where's the protein coming from? Where's the carb? Where's the vegetables? Where's your healthy fat? And kind of visualize like all of this mixed up. What would that look like? And so we teach this framework of the Menopause Healthy Plate to empower people to do their own meal planning. We really hesitate to just hand out a meal plan and say, go follow this, because we want you to feel empowered to know, okay, this is how I can build a meal that I know is good for me and I can eat like this forever. So
absolutely.
So that's the Menopause Healthy Plate. And I'd love to know, I know we're getting close to our time here, but I'd love to know if anybody listening has any other questions or just any
Yeah.
thoughts that have bubbled up for you too, Melanie.
Thank you so much, Monica. It's so good. I love the flexibility around it. There's a lot of ways of going about it. I also, one thing, as someone who's kind of worried around portion sizes, or it's a nice, healthy meal. It's enough food, and that's also great. Our bodies need that. We need to be ingesting enough food. And in diet culture, we can really get we can really throw ourselves off the rails with that. So wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Monica, for joining us, for sharing your expertise.
Absolutely.
Thank you, listener, for being part of this and sharing your real world examples. We're in this together. Join us next week. We'll be having another conversation, and we hope you all have a wonderful day for the rest.
Absolutely. Thanks, Melanie, and thank you all for being here. We'll see you next time.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.